ahead and get into game number 1 between Eric RIOS and RENZO NAVARRO.
Is there a King Gambit lead is my first question, because if there were an Incineroar to just copy it, boom, +2 attack. So there is the Incineroar, and the unique Annihilate has hit the field, of course, pressuring with that coaching. Volcarona, a key Pokemon that we were calling out earlier, also hits the field, and of course this Volcarona has that Covert Cloak, so you can get around Fake Out from Incineroar, but this Annihilate has Taunt, so a lot of options for Eric immediately. You, of course, don't want to go for Fake Out onto either Pokemon here, not really going to get that much value. Incineroar kind of caught in an awkward spot against the Basculegion. Annihilate has the ability to go for coaching and can also taunt immediately. Basculegion, Renzo really loves just going for flip turn onto it immediately, and I think getting the chip damage will be really important in this early game because you've got the Sash on Annihilate, you're intimidated, you're not doing that much damage right now.
I really like the opportunity for Volcarona here to maybe even go for a Terra. You've got that Terra Fairy. We've seen Renzo be able to utilize that to go for something like the Terra Fairy Terra Blast, something that both Dragonite and Annihilate would be weak to in this moment in time. Feels really safe to go for that, but right now Renzo's just going to rely on the offense of this Basculegion. Dragonite the perfect target to be able to take that, even though it was a critical hit. That's still going to be a pretty good attack to tank. Close combat though into the Basculegion, maybe expecting a switch there or potentially a Terra.
Yeah, this is such an interesting turn 1 because Renzo previously on stream showed that he was willing to play really defensively with the Basculegion, go for that flip turn that I was talking about. So I think if you were watching him, you'd probably think, oh, he's just going to play towards that style again. But Renzo's like, you know what? I'm happy to just Wave Crash and threaten the Incineroar and get damage, right? Like, the chip damage here is so important because now you've broken the Focus Sash on the Annihilate. You've broken the multi-scale on Dragonite as well. And so, really interesting turn 1. And yeah, Fish is for that switch because Flip Turn feels so obvious on Basculegion, but doesn't get it. And the Heat Wave there just to avoid potentially getting taunted.
It would have been crazy if it had been the King Gambit that switches into that slot just to take the close combat. But now you're looking at this position where I think Terra Fairy Terra Blast does a lot to either of these Pokemon. So Eric's going to have to make the most out of this Dragonite and this Annihilate and fast.
Yeah, and the Basculegion now is going to pivot out. I was curious, you know, at -1, how much is Wave Crash doing? But you've already been intimidated. There's that King Gambit switching you were talking about earlier. So Eric was trying to catch that on turn 1, and we're going to start off with the Terra.
So Terrassization is going to be really nice here for this Volcarona. Right now, you're staring down the opportunity of this Dragonite going for something like the Scale Shot, so Terra Fairy is going to be a way to immobilize that particular threat, but you're also going to be less weak to something like this close combat from the Annihilate. It's the extreme speed, though, into this Volcarona and the Flame Body to get the burn onto the Dragonite. What a big deal!
Okay, so the Rage Fist is going to come out. Does it get the knockout? My guess is no, but this Annihilate is probably more offensive than usual, and Volcarona survives, and it's another Flame Body! How about 2 burns for you?
That is so bad! The Volcarona is still up to be able to go for a Quiver Dance, and while it is going to be in range of getting knocked out to the extreme speed, it's the fact that it was around to deliver 2 burns to these 2 very powerful physical attackers.
Oh, but it does not get a damage off that turn. You are constantly vulnerable to extreme speed. That's higher priority than Sucker Punch from the opposing side, and so you could just go for extreme speed and close combat right now. Looks like we're thinking about switching into Incineroar instead. I think if Annihilate weren't burnt, you would probably just go for that close combat, but because of the burn, King Gambit will probably be able to survive. So the idea is, hey, the whole point of having this Mirror Herb is to copy opposing boost. Let me get these attack boosts on the opposing side. And the Volcarona is kind of pinned, right? Even if you protect here, you're still vulnerable to just getting hit by extreme speed or Fake Out next turn.
I think that this Volcarona is happy with the job that it's done so far. Yes, you've ended up giving over the Quiver Dance boost, and yes, you are at low HP, but who cares? Because you had that Flame Body activated, Incineroar does come in and will be able to show off why this Mirror Herb tech is so prominent in the meta right now, as King Gambit does get that small Defiant boost.
Yeah, it's interesting because I think Volcarona had a huge opportunity to Terra Blast there, but I think the Quiver Dance play certainly makes a lot of sense, and this is one of the coolest things about Eric's team as the Mirror Herb immediately activates. So now we've got +2 Incineroar on the field, no Protect from Volcarona, so it will just faint immediately. Now the question is, where did King Gambit target? It does get a big opportunity to do a lot of damage this turn now that it's gotten the Defiant boost.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, you also have that low kick, but it's going to be the Kowtow Cleave into the Incineroar. It's not going to be very effective thanks to that Dark typing on this Incineroar, but you're still going to be able to chunk it down quite a bit. The biggest problem is your Terrassalization has already been committed, so this King Gambit doesn't have an opportunity to get away from this Steel typing.
Yeah, and I think King Gambit is such an interesting Pokemon in this matchup because it, of course, can do a lot of damage, but inability to protect, and now that you can't Terra either, you're so vulnerable to Flare Blitz and close combat, right? So yeah, Eric got quite unlucky, obviously, with the double Flame Body burn, but he's still certainly in decent shape. Basculegion, of course, now, however, can come out and put on a lot of offensive pressure. It's immune to the Fake Out from the Rillaboom right now.
And it's also immune to this extreme speed, so Basculegion can't be hit by any of those priority attacks, and so go for the Wave Crash. Rillaboom would be a safe switch in to be able to tank one of those shots, but you know that your Basculegion is still going to become more and more powerful with something like Blast Respects as well, knowing that your Volcarona got knocked out.
Yeah, the key question right now is how do you deal with the Basculegion, right? Where's the Rillaboom hover in the back, so you kind of have to get Rillaboom in safely. Dragonite right now, not really going to do any damage into King Gambit, but there's the hover for Haze. So the idea behind Haze here is let me get rid of King Gambit's damage increase. It looks like it is just going to be the Rillaboom switch in here instead, though. Now, you do open the risk, of course, to something like Last Respects and the Kowtow Cleave with this, but I saw Renzo shake his head, so maybe that's not what's coming out.
Yeah, I might not have targeted down that slot, but you never know until this turn has actually played itself out. As we're going to see the Sucker Punch, so that's why he was shaking his head. He would have loved to be able to catch this Incineroar, being able to go for that damage, but instead you have this Wave Crash into the Rillaboom as well. Still a decent amount, but that's not the turn that Renzo would have wanted here.
Yeah, and even with the burn, Skill Shot's doing reasonable damage here, right? And this is a choice Basculegion, so you cannot protect yourself in front of Priority Grassy Glide, for example. You're also locked into Wave Crash, so Eric has been playing this game really, really flawlessly. What Renzo was hoping for there was for the Incineroar to stay in and say, you know what, okay, if you Ghost Terra, bang, I get Sucker Punch against you. If you stay in and you don't Ghost Terra, well, I get Wave Crash. But Eric finds the switch into Rillaboom. Of course, it does risk the Kowtow Cleave there, but Eric's just been one step ahead with the switches in this game, and the Basculegion's caught in a really tough spot right now.
Do you think that the +1, the Sucker Punch, would be enough though for to get the KO onto the Dragonite?
Yeah, it's just tough because like you'd have to be clicking it if it would only works if Scale Shot comes out, right? So there's Haze, there's Extreme Speed. Yeah, I think like Fake Out here makes a lot of sense, and you can just get rid of the damage on the King Gambit. But it's going to be Wave Crash. This probably knocks out Dragonite, but now you give a free switch in.
Yeah, I mean, it's still a big KO for you to take though. This was a Dragonite that had already gotten a bit of a speed boost thanks to the Scale Shot, and now you don't have to worry about the extreme speed either. But with the free switch, do you bring in Annihilate or do you bring in Incineroar? Incineroar has given up that Mirror Herb. That is no longer an option, and you've already given over a Defiant boost to this King Gambit. Yeah,
this is really interesting because there is the pressure of Sucker Punch from King Gambit, so you could obviously just Sucker Punch into the Annihilate slot. Right now, if you're Eric, you could just go for Grassy Glide onto the Basculegion, right? You don't want to just feign to a Wave Crash. Basculegion could pivot. Annihilate also could go for Coaching. There's also Stellar Close Combat into King Gambit, so Coaching here would allow you to get around the Sucker Punch, but Basculegion here, of course, has that Choice Scarf, so would be able to go for the Wave Crash. You go Grassy Glide to cover for that, but then you leave King Gambit just free to attack. So the King Gambit actually having that Defiant boost right now, not threatened a ton because with the burn on the Annihilate. So Eric still has his Terra, so the question is, when does he actually want to use it? There is the potential for the Stellar, but yeah, I think he's this turn is so crucial. Do you just go for Close Combat? There's the Stellar Close Combat. Yeah, Stellar Close Combat, Grassy Glide here, but you're vulnerable to Sucker Punch from Gambit, so let's see.
Oh,
Bas switches out.
Basculegion switching out, so that means that Renzo is going to bring in this fourth Pokemon. It is going to be the Baxcalibur that ends up taking its place, but how does the rest of this turn actually play out as we see this Stellar Terra come through?
Oh, this is so huge. Is it Sucker Punch going off into an Annihilate slot right now? It's gonna Terra Stellar, giving you that damage increase in the close combat. This will be so instrumental because if you Sucker Punch, you just knock out the Annihilate. And it's gonna be Grassy Glide first, but is it Sucker Punch?
Oh my gosh, if the Sucker Punch follows it up, it is, and it actually gets the knockout onto the Annihilate.
So crucial, knocking out Annihilate there. Annihilate, of course, had the ability to go for Coaching. There was the possibility of going for something like Coaching into high horsepower in the King Gambit. Baxcalibur, the final Pokemon, a key reveal here as well. Incineroar will be able to come out and pressure with Fake Out and get another Intimidate off, but it's looking a little bit dicey right now.
It's looking really difficult now for Eric because you're now going to have this King Gambit that is at +2 thanks to these Defiant boosts, and Baxcalibur is still in this position where it should be able to use Scale Shot. It's going to start to become faster than everything, and Rillaboom isn't really pressuring all that much into this Baxcalibur.
Yeah, and you've got the Icicle Spear until the Rillaboom as well, right? So you can just try to quickly knock out the Rillaboom, and then of course the Basculegion can come out and just finish things off here. And so I think the burn onto Annihilate was a really big deal because it forced Eric to make that switch earlier on in the game. But here's just Sucker Punch coming out into the Rillaboom, and oh, it does survive.
Okay, it survives, but the Icicle Spear was going to ensure that damage picks up the KO onto the Rillaboom, so it's just as Incineroar left. And even though you're going to be able to actually get this damage down with the Flare Blitz, you're taking so much recoil in response.
Yeah.
And you're not picking up the knockout.
Basculegion just cleanly sweeps at this point onwards. It already felt like an uphill battle for Eric, but the key turn was the Annihilate getting Sucker Punch there. Renzo makes the call, does not get baited into the potential coaching, and has a huge, huge turn there. But Flame Body Volcarona, even though it went for that Quiver Dance and it just fainted, being able to burn the Annihilate was so huge.
That is insane. Twice in one turn, and onto really key Pokemon for Eric to have wanted to utilize later. Scale Shot, looking at the damage that ended up actually coming out after the burn, I feel like it would have been enough to actually secure a knockout plus something like that Grassy Glide from the Rillaboom. There was so much potential there for Eric to be able to run away with that game with those physical attackers, and that all got taken away because of the burns.
Yeah, I thought both players made really great plays throughout that battle. Like, Eric was making these really good defensive plays and getting constant switch-ins, but this is what's interesting. Like, Incineroar feels really good into a lot of Renzo's team, but giving the King Gambit this free boost is actually a little bit scary, right? But once again, like, the reason why I keep focusing on that burn is because the King Gambit can't protect itself, so if the Annihilate was able to just close combat it, Gambit just goes down, right? And so I think the Pokemon choice felt fine from the opposing side, right? Like, do you really want to bring Golden Go into a matchup with Volcarona? It feels a little bit scary. Electabuzz, I could use for redirection, and I think if you're Eric, you might be happy just running it back, saying, you know what, like, I probably have a much better time in that game if I don't eat up the double burn.
Yeah, I mean, even looking at this turn where you actually see the close combat come through into the Basculegion, Eric was already playing really risky on that first turn, kind of hoping that he would be able to get a read of some type of switch, really go ahead and make a step forward. But it was not meant to be in that particular game. We've got another game, though, for these two to play out in this Masters Top 8 match. So we're going to see Basculegion and Volcarona here for Renzo, and Eric is going to be bringing the Dragonite and the Incineroar.
So Incineroar, valuable to get that Intimidate off. It does pressure with knockoff. You have to be scared about that Fairy Terra from Volcarona defensively because, of course, it can deal with that Scale Shot. And so right now, Incineroar kind of caught in an awkward spot. Dragonite, I think, gets a very free Scale Shot into the Basculegion slot, which is very, very powerful. But, of course, Basculegion here could just switch out into the King Gambit. You could also go for Volcarona and say, you know what? You're not going to Terra right now. Like, you're not going to commit your Terra. He's going to go for it.
Wow, the switch is going to come through from the Incineroar first, but the Scale Shot was selected into this Volcarona. So is there a Terrestrialization that actually comes through from Renzo's side? We're going to have to wait for this Grassy Surge animation to come through, and then we get a chance to find out. But there's no Terra. No way. Wave Crash into the Rillaboom. Not super effective, but how much is this Scale Shot going to do? Heat Wave first.
Heat Wave does a lot of damage to Rillaboom. Crucially breaks multi-scale on Dragonite as well. And
the burn!
The burn! Are you kidding me? There's no way.
This Scale Shot was going to be so impactful, and now it's just going to do barely half HP to this Volcarona if it's going to be 5 hits.
Oh, incredibly unlucky sequence for Eric here. It does manage to hit 5 times. You can see Volcarona would have survived with the Sliver HP, but the logic of what Eric was going for there was saying, look, okay, if you go for Fairy Terra on Volcarona, sure, you're immune to the Scale Shot this turn, but then I actually bring out Rillaboom. And now Rillaboom as a Volcarona counter seems kind of crazy, but this is Fire Terra Rillaboom, so you can get around taking super effective damage from Heat Wave, for example. But yeah, Eric makes a beautiful call thinking Volcarona is not going to Terra, but once again eats up the burn, and he is definitely playing from behind right now. That's a really crucial burn once again.
Oh man, and Rillaboom took so much damage when it actually came onto the field as well. The Heat Wave plus the Wave Crash has amounted to a lot, and so this Rillaboom has only a short fuse for it to work on when it comes down to maybe even landing something like a Wood Hammer. Eric is gonna just remove it from the field for now, as we also see the King Gambit hit the field for Renzo, and it's Annihilate that's gonna take this Rillaboom's place. Scale Shot into the Volcarona. It is just not going to be enough to get the KO here.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I mean, if you get a couple critical hits maybe, but the burn just so unfortunate from the Heat Wave, and Volcarona does hang on with the Sliver despite 2 5 hits from the Scale Shot. So a burn Dragonite just feels really sad. Like, one of the ways to shut down Dragonite is to decrease its attack, but it is going to be a Quiver Dance, so It's tough because, yeah, the burn and the grassy terrain means Volcarona's be able to hang on and then heal back a little bit as well. And this time, the question is, do you want to Terra that Volcarona? Because now that you've got King Gambit on the field, that's actually a pretty good Terra candidate.
Yeah, the Terra for the King Gambit is going to be Ghost, so you do actually make yourself vulnerable to something like the Rage Fist, but this Annihilate hasn't taken any damage yet.
Right.
So this Rage Fist isn't going to be super powerful unless you were going to commit something like the Stellar Terra.
Yeah, this is a really interesting turn because I think there's a lot of options you can go for on both ends, right? The Annihilate does have the Focus Sash, so we'll be able to survive something like a Terra Blast. You could go for something like Fairy Terra, Sucker Punch plus Terra Blast onto Annihilate, but then you open yourself up to the threat of coaching once again with Annihilate. So this Annihilate having coaching and taunt, it makes this such an interesting dance between the Annihilate and the King Gambit. And we can see Eric trying to potentially go for that close combat target on a King Gambit. Yeah, you can see he's really thinking about it, but once again, this is vulnerable to the Scale Shot Fairy Terra play. Do we see a Terra coming out?
There is going to be a Terra, and it looks like it's going to be committed onto this King Gambit. Okay, so that's a huge call here, recognizing that the King Gambit with its full HP is a very, very powerful Pokemon here for Renzo, especially if you can get around a turn of close combat. The Scale Shot from the Dragonite is going to go first, though, thanks to the speed boost that it's had. Even the Volcarona with the Quiver Dance isn't able to keep up.
Critically knocking out the Volcarona here before it gets the move off. You would have been able to do a lot of damage with another Heat Wave there, but Ghost Terra, just a pretty safe position to go for it because you're now just a lot less weak into Annihilate, which normally threatens you with that close combat. And so Terra between Volcarona and King Gambit is huge, right? Picking one of the two, and this time you're able to save it for the King Gambit, go for that Kowtow Cleave. This is going to do a ton of damage, and the problem is there's still this burnt Dragonite on the field, right? So now if you're Renzo, you do get a free switch in.
The free switch in is going to be nice as well. You do have to worry about the fact that this Dragonite is still going to be fast, even if you bring out this Basket Legion that has the Choice Scarf. This Dragonite has had 3 Scale Shot speed boosts at this point. This Basket Legion, not going to be susceptible to something like the Extreme Speed, and even when you take a look at the Scale Shot, it's going to survive that too.
Yeah, I think what's really scary right now for Eric, though, is that you have a free Wave Crash into the Annihilate slot, and there's really not much that Eric can do to respond to it, right? Like, you don't have a defensive Terra here on the Annihilate. Rillaboom's already so low. Getting that chip damage with that Heat Wave early on in the game was absolutely huge, right? And so Renzo, of course, has gotten lucky with these burns, but I also think he's been playing super, super well. You can see that he's planning more long-term, right? Going for these trades that might not make a ton of sense early on, but as you think about the overall big picture of the game, suddenly it really adds up. And he does such a good job of finding these spots for Basket Legion. So the idea here is, okay, I'm going to switch in and get that Intimidate off, but now you are giving the Defiant boost to the opposing side.
I think what you're hoping is maybe this Annihilate is able to survive something like the Wave Crash, or you're saying, I might have to sacrifice this Incineroar here, or you expect that at -1, this Basket Legion Wave Crash would not actually be enough to pick up a KO onto the Incineroar. What if this King Gambit goes for Sucker Punch, though, into this Annihilate?
Let's see, so many different options. Incineroar does threaten the King Gambit a lot right now. It is just going to be the Wave Crash here, and it is into Annihilate, which gets the knockout. I think that was always the safest option. You know you can't protect with the Annihilate. Instant Rillaboom could switch in, but then you eat up so much damage, maybe even get knocked out. And the King Gambit here does go for Kowtow Cleave. There was the opportunity for a read there, thinking, okay, well, Dragonite's going to switch out here. I could low kick. That may have been game-winning on the spot. I don't know if that knocks out the Incineroar, but either way, Incineroar at least comes out. Now you can threaten the Rillaboom. You pressure with Grassy Glide onto Basket Legion and knock off on a King Gambit.
Oh, the Rillaboom comes back in, and you can see just how little HP it has left to work with. This Basket Legion, too, we've seen how tanky sometimes these Basket Legion can be to something just like a normal Grassy Glide from a Rillaboom on terrain. Might not even be enough to actually secure the knockout onto this Basket Legion here, so you have to play a little bit around. I can't fake out because both of these are ghost types, but what else do you do in this situation?
This turn is huge. You can see Eric's trying to bait. He's saying, you know what, you know that Grassy Glide might knock your Basket Legion out. I think you're going to switch Basket Legion out, and it does switch!
It's going to switch here!
Oh, that's huge! Eric, a perfect play here this turn.
That's going to give him so much breathing room, as the Bax Caliber is going to be the thing that ends up coming out onto the field instead. But the Rillaboom also switching out here to bring in the Dragonite. Did Renzo get a call to be able to get another KO here? It's a Sucker Punch into the Incineroar.
Gets the Sucker Punch. Okay, and so Knockoff now comes out. It does get the KO, but you get the free switch in back into Basket Legion. So going for the guaranteed damage here. Now you've got Dragonite plus the Incineroar. The Incineroar can't protect, right? So you can take a knockout on that slot. Oh, this is a really, really tight battle here. Baxcalibur in a good spot to just go for those scale shots and Icicle Spears in this current position.
Yeah, I mean, just go after the Dragonite here. I feel like it's a very safe to be able to go for something like an Icicle Spear. You know that Rillaboom has the potential to be able to come in, and this Dragonite could go for Protect, but I feel like RENZO has just been playing lights out in this match so far.
Yeah, keep in mind, there is still Terra on Eric's end, right? So that could be the thing that helps save him. He also timed the terrain well. Oh, he's going for the potential Rillaboom switch, and this is
risky.
It's risky because if Rillaboom faints, I think that's just game over. Rillaboom is the key piece you need to deal with the Choice Scarf Basculegion right now. Having that priority Grassy Glide, Basculegion's taken some chip damage, and so a lot of times with that chip, I would expect Grassy Glide to get the knockout. So this turn is also huge. Eric is thinking about it. He's committing to the switch. Instant pivots out. Will Rillaboom be able to survive this turn?
Oh, there's a Baxcalibur on the other side with something like Ice Shard that would be really excited about seeing something like that Rillaboom, but this Basculegion gets a chance to potentially go first. It's the Dragonite going for Protect, so can RENZO actually get any damage down to these Pokemon? It's going to be the Wave Crash into the Rillaboom. It just gets knocked out here. That is a big KO, and Incineroar gets to come in.
Yeah, but now how do you deal with the combo of these two Pokemon,
It's
right?
so tough.
You get the Intimidate, which is nice, but you're still facing off the Baxcalibur. This is where, unfortunately, once again, the burn was so crucial, right? If this were a non-burn Dragonite, I guess, yeah, I mean, you defensively Terra. Like, the key thing, though, is one of the reasons why Baxcalibur, I think, is awesome is because of its ability to outspeed the Dragonite. So, yeah, like, now you pressure with Wave Crash plus Icicle Spear. Incineroar, of course, can potentially go for a Terra here as well. Dragonite's not doing very much damage, so I think, like, Eric probably has to use his Terra this turn, but what do you really do here? You're still burnt on the Dragonite. Scale Shot is not going to get the knockout I would expect into either slot.
Yeah, it's really tough because Baxcalibur has an easy Protect here just to be able to get through this Incineroar's Fake Out if it wants to. And at that point, you're allowing this Basculegion to potentially just get a knockout with the Wave Crash. Here is the Terastallization, but it feels almost too little too late as Eric is going to commit that onto the Incineroar to give it that Ghost typing.
Yeah, the idea is to keep Incineroar around so that you don't faint to Wave Crash. You go for Fake Out, double up on Baxcalibur, get your speed boost so that you can outpace the Baxcalibur in the next turn, but I'm still not sure that's enough. We'll have to see. Fake Out does come out. Baxcalibur critically does not protect this turn.
So the Wave Crash is going to be able to find its target onto the Incineroar, and it does stick around for this next turn. But what is this Dragonite going to be able to accomplish as this Baxcalibur is going to be faked out? Look at these scale shots. Even if you add up 5 together, this Baxcalibur is going to be around for this next turn. But this Dragonite does get the speed boost.
It does, yeah, but now it's just vulnerable to an Ice Shard from the opposing side. It's only 4 hits as well. Eric hoping for maybe 5 hits, maybe a critical hit along that. I think Eric found the one play that could keep him in this game, but unfortunately it's only going to be 4 hits and no critical hits along any of those. And so now you just pressure with the Ice Shard plus the Wave Crash here, and I think that should be it. You, of course, can hope for an Extreme Speed crit, but I don't think that's enough either. And this Volcarona with the Flame Body just so clutch in both games. Such crucial burns.
That was incredible. Baxcalibur is going to get the double Protect, or yeah, the Protect as well on this turn. So the Wave Crash into this Incineroar. Oh, this Dragonite is going to try its absolute best, but wow, I cannot believe how much work that Volcarona put in, despite the fact we didn't really get a chance to see it move too much in this game. It feels like the heavy lifting MVP for sure. Dragonite Scale Shot goes into the Baxcalibur, and RENZO still gets a chance to fire off attacks with both of these Pokemon.
Yeah, I think Eric brought the right Pokemon in this matchup. I think Dragonite, recognizing how good it is and recognizing, look, you know you have Fairy Terra Volcarona, but you can only Terra one of Volcarona King Gambit. If I force a Terra out of one of those, great, but RENZO is going to keep the dream of LATAM winning LAIC for the first time and advance onto the top 4.
Oh, those burns. I know it comes a little bit with a little bit of salt there. I think sometimes you just know that that's sometimes the game that we play, but RENZO made some incredible plays. He was very consistent. He played to